Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Cape Crusader Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our two returning guests. We have Jason Michalski and Dan Membiela. No?
Membiela, nailed it.
Membiela. Hey, we gave you that good try. Welcome to the stream, two returning guests. We're here to break down such an awesome book right here, Northern Blood, baby, and this one is awesome, and another one too, but you guys gotta hang out a little bit before we talk about that one. Without further hesitation though, guys, let's go ahead and give a little bit of a recap of who you two are and how you got into creating comics.
Sure. So thanks, Dan. My name's Jason Michalski, and I'm the writer and co-creator of Northern Blood, coming from Blood Moon Comics, currently in Previews magazine, and available for pre-order at every fine comic book store in America. I started making comics maybe 15 years ago. Northern Blood is my second published book that I have co-created with artist Antonio Rojo. This is our second book together, and we're having a blast. We're very excited that it's in previews, that it's been picked up by Blood Moon. It's going to be a 4-issue miniseries coming out in January that'll carry through the spring, and then collected in the trade paperback.
Okay, hell yeah. And for everyone that is watching, right here is the link to cover A and cover B on Previews World. We have Charles Satterley over on YouTube stopping in. Ichthus stopping in to say what is up and getting close to 700 subs. Yes, we are 2 subs away from 700. At 750, we are building this Millennium Falcon right here. So let's go.
Let's go.
Dan, welcome back. Give us a little bit about you as well. Our good friend who created Under God. So we have some heavy hitters in the chat. I'm so excited about this.
Hey, thank you. First off, Cody, thank you so much for having us on. Thank you for making this space and for letting us be a part of it. We really appreciate you.
Yeah.
So I like we said last time, I wrote some comics in the 90s. Started getting back in. I tried to get back into comics in 2016, and then just decided, I don't need any publisher's validation or editor's validation. I'll just make the comics myself, and started making Good Agent, put it on Comixology, and then I made have 7 issues of that up, and then I did the 49-page Under God, and that was a successful Zoop campaign, and here we are, and I read Northern Blood, and Northern Blood is an amazing book.
God, yes.
I was lucky enough to get the editions that you all have, but I've already pre-ordered the Blood Moon Comics edition in previews. Looking forward to it.
And those covers are awesome too, man.
Yeah, so both covers are drawn by Antonio Rojo. Cover A, which is the one that you have in your hands for the Indiegogo campaign edition that we did, was drawn by Antonio and colored by DC Alonso. DC Alonso is a veteran comic book colorist who's, I think, worked for every comic book company under the sun in the last decade. Cover B, yep, that's cover A. That's our standard cover. Then cover B is cool because this is also drawn by Antonio, and this is going to be a foil variant, meaning the orange skeleton warrior on the cover is going to be in a foil.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and the variant covers for 2, 3, and 4 will have a matching theme. So they'll have the similar trade dress with a different Viking warrior on the cover, and it'll be a different color in a foil edition. So I'm really excited about that. And then we also have some other variant covers from different artists that are going to be some fun surprises coming out for issues 2, 3, and 4.
Oh, that is so cool. And congratulations on getting to Previews World. I remember we did when we first, connected and we did our interview, you were, still getting this up and going. So it's awesome to see this being available to pre-order, man. How do you feel about that?
It's an amazing experience. When we first met back, I think it was like December of last year, I think.
Maybe February or March.
Was it? I don't. Oh, maybe you're right. Yeah, I'm getting my times confused because
dude, 6 months, so much happens.
I know, and the Indiegogo campaign ran for a long time, so I don't, this whole year has been a blur for me. So yeah, we were in the, when we first talked about this, we were at the tail end of the campaign. We were wrapping it up, and the whole idea was once the campaign was finished, we'd start shopping it to publishers, and which we started doing. And one day on Twitter, Keith Rommel, the CEO of Blood Moon Comics, was doing a Twitter space. Ooh. And I usually don't like I don't really know how to use Twitter all that well, and I didn't really know, wasn't really sure what a Twitter space was, so I just saw it. They were taking submissions, so I said, I was sitting at home, and I figured, let me just click on it and see what happens. And I clicked on it, and Keith was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I was like, I wasn't ready for that. Like, I wasn't ready to actually talk to somebody. So we started talking, and he's a great guy. We're actually from the same area in New York, so we had an instant connection there. And
you're like, I'm walking here.
Yeah, pretty much. And so, I told him what I had, and he asked to see it, and I sent it to him, and he told me that, within 24 hours, I'll have an answer for you. And sure enough, 24 hours later, he sent me an email, and the rest is history.
How did that 24 hours feel? Was it nerve-wracking?
Not really. I mean, a little bit, but I've submitted tons of proposals over the years that you kind of send it and forget it. And then, if you do get a response, is great. Sometimes you don't. So I didn't really think about it too much. But sure enough, 24 hours later in my inbox was a response, and I was really, really excited about that. And I thought that spoke volumes about Keith and his character.
That is so awesome.
Which I really respected, because, 24 hours is not a lot of time. And I'm sure he gets hundreds of submissions a week, if not thousands a week. And it was pretty awesome.
That is so cool. That is awesome. So we have Charles saying, always supporting my bro from another Mo. Jason, been following Dan on Twitter. Northern Blood is fantastic. And then throwing up foil when we got to the foil part as well. Yeah, I love this foil. So what was some of your inspiration for this variant cover? I mean, because it is a little bit different than this one. We have like the Nazis getting stabbed and dying right here. So have a little bit more focus on this. Is this, so what is this right here?
Okay, so these covers came about. The artist Antonio had drawn 4 black and white sketches, and one of those characters, well, now all 4 characters that you'll see on each cover are those sketches, and he was going to kind of raffle them off to people who were interested and who supported the campaign. He was thinking about, what can I do to do a little extra here, and we never ended up using them. So when I was talking to Keith, he said, if you want to do variant covers, let me know. And we usually do, variant covers are a good way to market the books. So I went back to Antonio and I said, hey, what do you want to do for variant covers? And then he showed me the sketches, and I said, yeah, let's do that. So then he just ran with it. He created the trade dress the way you see it. The characters on each cover they're just random zombies that were in the book. Like, you'll maybe see them throughout the backgrounds and stuff, but there's no they're not main characters of the books. He colored each one a different color, and we sent them to Keith, and he liked it. And then he came back and he said, hey, I want to do these as foil covers. And I was like, all right, let's do it.
You're like, man, Keith, I like you more and more, man. Keep talking.
Yeah, like I'm when it comes to comics, I'm a 90s kid, really. Like, I grew up in the 80s, but it wasn't until like 89 where I had my own allowance where I can buy comics, and that kind of carried over into the 90s. So I'm all in on like foil and hologram covers, and that's speaking my language right there. So when he emailed me, he was like, I want to do these as foil covers. Can you send me the Photoshop files? We were like, hell yeah. So, and the nice thing is, because they're different colors, it just, the theme is to me, it has a very like 1980s synth pop record kind of feel to it, where you'll see the colors eventually, and it'll make sense. And it's just nice having that kind of set. So that's how that came about. I instantly loved them, and I got to show you eventually I'll show you the black and whites of these.
Ooh,
Because they're incredible. Yeah, I mean, because everything he does is, traditional pen to paper. So all of this stuff, all the original artwork, everything is sitting in a pile in his apartment.
I really like how the way it looks too. Well, one of my favorite parts when I got this thing is monsters, by the way, but like the way on the side, how you have it right there, so I could put it up on my bookshelf and be like, okay, right there's Northern Blood. Like, let's go. I am such a sucker for like the small details.
Yeah. The spine dress is important because if it's on the shelf, you have to see it. You have to see the title, right? And especially if it's a thinner book, because we clock in. What you have is 80 pages exactly. So that's kind of thin to be on its side on a shelf. So, we were like, we're definitely putting a spine on it, so that if someone has it on their shelf, they can see what it is. Because that's one thing, like, like those older prestige format comics from the 80s and 90s, sometimes they didn't have that, and you have like these things lined up on your shelf and you don't know what it is. So I'm like, now we got to put a trade dress on it.
I love how like the comics you bought as a kid like really like just stuck with you, and then it became a product that you wanted to like start creating when you were older.
Oh yeah, and you haven't seen anything yet. Like the stuff that's coming, like the stuff that we're doing, next year, is all about that. It's for me, making these comics is really just a love letter to what I grew up with. All that stuff, from, like I said, I grew up in the 80s and in the 90s, but my love of comics really starts back, from the golden age up until now. And so I try to throw all of those influences, everything that I love, I try to put into that. So that's what you get. And I think with Northern Blood, you kind of see that. Like you see a lot of 70s war comics and
for sure
video games like Wolfenstein and Skyrim in there. That's basically what it is. It's a mashup of, could I do Sergeant Rock and Viking zombies? And that was basically what the idea. That's how it came to me sitting on the couch in 2020. And I just wrote the script and sent it over to Antonio for some feedback, and then he was like, I'm gonna draw this. I was like, all right.
Dude, speaking of Wolfenstein, did you guys see that story about the dude who was at, like, I think he was like at a gay bar and he beat up like 36 Nazis at a gay bar, and they were comparing him to BJ from Wolfenstein. And I'm like, dude, like, it's like, was this in waves? Was this in one group? Like, I have so many unanswered questions here.
But so Northern Blood really is a love letter to those 70s war comics, 60s and 70s war comics, and the video games that I grew up playing. So that's all it is. Like,
no, that is awesome. We have Ichthus over on.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was saying, I basically like just take my action figures and smash them together.
Hey Jason, I was thinking about Northern Blood, and also a big hit that I like. The war comics are there. The Sergeant Rock is there. The 70s like supernatural war angle is there. The zombie horror comics are there. But like, I got a big hit of Indiana Jones also. Reading Northern Blood. So if you're a fan of war comics, zombies, classic supernatural horror comics, and Indiana Jones, you're gonna really love Northern Blood. And
let me go ahead.
It's really a great book.
If you want, I have those interiors that you sent me over the Google Drive, so I can actually just pull those up right now, and we can kind of look at them if you want.
Yes, please, because Antonio is really the real hero in this.
There's so
I can't say enough. Like, in this. He co-created this. All the visuals you see are him. Because we've been working together for a very long time, for 10 years now, and we speak the same language as far as comics go. Like, if you go to he lives in Algeciras, Spain, but it feels like he's just, we grew up together. That's just like the same influences. Like, if you look at his bookshelf, it's kind of like Dan's in the background. It's all the same stuff that I had. So everything was like in sync. We're the same age. It was just like perfect. So he really, 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 I can't say enough of the work that he did on this book. It's
how was
incredible.
that? Because you actually had the opportunity to stay with him for a little bit. How was that? As someone like, did you know like much Spanish previously, or did you kind of learn along the way?
So I was there a couple of times, and before I was there for the longest stretch I was there for was for 6-7 weeks when we were promoting another book. We did like a small book tour there, and I rented an Airbnb, but I basically like ate all this food and the whole time. So he, being around his wife and his kids, eventually I started picking some, like I started understanding. Like I couldn't really speak it, but I could understand. Like if you're immersed in the language, eventually you're gonna pick some things up. Unfortunately, I had to leave before it really started, like really, picking up for me. But I did get to like help his kids with a little bit of English because they were taking English classes.
Oh, dude, that's it. You're like, let's go. Like, I'm here. I'm ready.
Yeah, his middle son was calling me the English professor. He thought I was a teacher. The only other person he knew was his teacher that spoke English, so it was pretty fun.
Is that picture of you with the jamon from when you were staying there?
Yes, that's
a great picture.
So I was there right before Christmas. Like I was in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and of course the jamon is the staple there, especially at the holidays. So we went to the store. I went with them.
It's a ham.
The ham. We went to the store where they bought it, and they let me cut a couple of pieces. I wasn't allowed to butcher it. You know what I'm talking about. And so so I got to slice it a little bit, but his wife was really the one in charge of that. And it was just incredible.
That's so cool though.
Yeah. So this was before Northern Blood, because that's right when the pandemic hit, is when I left.
You got lucky you didn't get stuck there. Holy crap, man.
I was we had gone to Malaga for a convention, and I flew out 2 days before they started closing everything down.
Wow.
So by the hair of your chinny chin, man. Holy crap. So
I know I was at FreeCon and Peter Milligan was supposed to be there. And I mentioned this in the last show. Peter Milligan was my reason for wanting to write comic books. Shade the Changing Man, everything he did in the 90s was he's the reason why I wanted to become a writer. And he was going to be there. And I was like, shit, I'm going to get something signed. I'm finally going to meet, my hero. And he canceled because of COVID. And I was like, fuck. And then everybody started. And then everybody started canceling. And, it was pretty much a wrap by the time the show started. So and then I went home the day, right after the convention.
Real quick though, we have Ichthus over on YouTube. Sick cover. Black and white pieces are always fantastic. We have Charles Satterley. It looks so good. Ichthus. This looks absolutely beautiful. And I love this. There's nothing better than seeing Nazis get killed and smashed and blown up. So we've already kind of chatted about it a little bit, but since we're here, what was some of your inspiration for kind of traveling to this, this era, this time zone and incorporating zombies with it?
Oh, so hold on, it's Antonio. The inspiration was, I have a lot of the DC showcase phone book reprints of like Sergeant Rock, Hawkman, and a few other things, maybe even Haunted Tank. I can't remember. It's been a while, but I have a lot of those. And every once in a while I'd flip through them, and I always loved war comics. So I figured, I like doing them. Also, I mentioned this before, my grandfather served in World War II, and he was over there. So that was also always a big influence for me as a kid, because I always thought that was pretty incredible. And so that's always kind of stuck with me. And so I always wanted to, do war stories, and I've done a few already. But I wanted to do something different. And the idea of just having, the zombies kind of being the good guys in this case, right? Because they're butchering these Nazis that ransacked their treasure. I thought, I want to see if I can do something different and see what would it look like if I mashed these things up, and if I could, do it with some punch, where I could keep it under 100 pages, very tight and fun, and just try to create a comic that where the story starts and doesn't stop. From the minute it starts, it doesn't stop until the very end. And like a first-person shooter, which is very once you get started, you get going, and it's like a roller coaster. So the more I thought about it, right, my base was the foundation was World War II. I wanted to change the location to a different setting that I haven't really worked in before, which was like Norway, because I was like battles in the snow. So I wanted to have battles in the snow. So I just went with that. And then, okay, zombies. And then what's a little more interesting than zombies, and let's do like Viking zombies, because, that visually looks pretty cool. So that was the idea. So we just kind of, I just put that together, and, everything you see in the book is basically what was in the first draft of the script. The influences of Wolfenstein, this world of World War II, this kind of, secret history of what may have happened back then. And then have some of the quieter moments between Frank, who's the GI that was separated from his unit, and Estrid, who's a local woman who's also captured by the Nazis, and have some quieter moments with them, but then also keep the action escalating at the same time.
So,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, you have 4 issues planned. Are the other 3 like going to be as big as? Because this first one was a whopper, man. This was a heavy hitter.
So, so that's the whole story. So you're holding.
I had such a brain fart because I read something right here and it threw me off. It said in this first issue of 4, I was like, okay, like I remember you saying something like that, but then I was like, well, hold on, maybe something changed since we last chat.
No, so initially, when we created it, we figured, all right, let's write this in 4 single issues. But when we did the Indiegogo campaign, we just put it all together to have it as one story that we could.
That makes sense.
Funded. And then if a publisher was ever interested in cutting it into 4 issues, we had those breaks, right?
So then they're going to be roughly what, like 22 pages?
Yeah. So there's 20 pages of story in each issue.
Well, that is awesome. Are they going to release like on a monthly basis then? You said the first one's coming out in January, so it'd be like January, February.
Yep, January, February, March, April.
No, that is so cool, dude. Congratulations, man. That is so cool. Yeah. Sorry about the confusion on that end. Because I remember we were going over and I read it. I was like, well, shit, dude. Like, man, I cannot imagine like 4 like issues, 88 pages, and you're like, we're trying to keep this under 100. I was like, well, he overkilled that. Like,
So no, I kind of, I think Antonio would have strangled me if I proposed that, but. Yeah, we're thinking about, we have more story planned. There is some world building in this series, right? That talks about the past and how the Viking leader Ivar came to be. So there's a little bit of that in exposition. Because the idea we had was maybe we'll do a prequel if the Indiegogo campaign was successful enough. Maybe do like a one-shot 20-page prequel that explains the history of how the Viking zombies came to be.
That would be so cool.
And then now, we're on a bigger stage with Blood Moon. Now Antonio and I are talking about a full-blown sequel.
Nice.
And all everything goes well. Hopefully we'll get to do another 4-part sequel and pick up the story will pick up 40 years later in the 1980s.
Let's go, dude.
Cool.
Because we want this time the classic enemies of the 80s action movies were the Russians. So it'll be called Northern Blood Red Winter.
I love it, dude. Oh man, that is so good.
Yeah, so it's gonna be, we're plotting it. Well, this time around Antonio actually came up with the plot. He was like, this is what I want to do. This is the idea I'm thinking about. And usually what happens is I'll give him a couple of ideas and then he'll come back with something completely different. He's like, and it's going to be like, okay, we're going to do this. Like, okay. Because, not only he's the artist, right? So, and he's also like 6'8". So you're like, I'm like 5'7" on a good day. And if you see pictures of us together, nobody really says no to him. So I was like, all right, this is a great idea. We're gonna do it.
So how does it feel though? Kind of like letting him take the wheel for a little bit, going from the person who was the main like writing force behind it and letting him kind of get a little bit of that direction.
I love it because the way we work basically is when I write the script, it's I'll write out the script, but then he takes it and then he runs with it. Mm-hmm. So what he brings back doesn't necessarily match what I wrote. Usually it's better. So then I'll adjust the script to what he's drawn. So he came up with the basic plot for the sequel. I'll flesh out the script and then flip it back to him, and then he'll draw it the way he sees it, and then I'll go back and dialogue it, and we'll make it work. And that's kind of basically it's how we did it with this, except I had the first time I came up with the idea, I brought the idea to the table. This time he's bringing the idea to the table, but our process will still be the same.
And I think him kind of taking the wheel really shows you that relationship that's developing between you two. He's into this project 110%. You know what I mean? Yeah. That he's coming up with the stuff, and it just seems like letting your artist kind of do what he wants to will let him do the best work possible, right?
I agree. I mean, comics are a visual medium, and the artist. We talked about this. I'm not even comfortable. For me, the artist's name has to come first on the book too, mm-hmm. In the credits. Him and I argue about that, but but the way I feel is because comics is a visual medium. I feel the artist should have the driving force behind the idea. They let them take the wheel because they're the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into every page, and everything else that's involved. I feel like when you give an artist the room to breathe, this mm-hmm. is the results. These are the results you're going to get, and I love it. And you've seen it, and we haven't even shown the pages in the later half of the book, which are phenomenal. Right?
Yeah, this is gorgeous. I love this dude just getting sliced in half right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no spoilers at all, but war comics, horror comics, zombie, supernatural comics. There's more. There's more that's part of the part of surprises that happen along the way.
There's a lot still. More, which which I don't know. Maybe I should have promoted that part of it more when we did the campaign, but I didn't want to spoil what happens in that final issue.
Yeah. No, it's a great. It's excellent. I mean, it's you get a cherry on top, and then you get another whole sundae on top, mm-hmm. Top of that.
So when I'll try to say this without spoiling the ending. So the fourth issue, the last 20 pages, were done, and he had drawn up until then, and then he sent me a text, and he was like, "I'm thinking of this," and I was like, "Oh shit, okay, give me a couple of days." So I went back and then rewrote it to what you got now. Mm-hmm. So he's responsible for that. He was like, I'm thinking, and all he said was, in his style, "I'm thinking X," and I was like, "Oh, we need that." Yeah.
Did he do the lettering too?
He did. Yeah.
Dude, this is awesome. I love this. The chunk, the boom, the machine gun. Dude, this is great.
Yeah. He does everything so well. He did the logo. The cover A was drawn first, and that was drawn maybe 6 months before he even started penciling. And he drew the cover. I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then, because at that point we haven't even really agreed that we were going to do it. Mm-hmm. He just started drawing stuff, and he sent me the cover, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then all of a sudden, he sent me a colored version of it, and I was like, "Oh, wow,
this is really cool."
Really cool. And I was like, "Who colored it?" He's like, "Oh, my friend David." And I'm like, "Who's that?" And then I saw the signature, and I was like, "Oh shit!" So I looked it up, and it's DC Alonso, and DC has worked for Marvel, DC, Aftershock, everybody. Like, and he's on 1 million Kickstarter campaigns, and I'm sure he's even people that have been on here, he's probably colored some of those books. And I was like, oh my god, like this is really happening, and it just took off from there.
That is so cool. Real quick, we have in the chat, Charles, the only real politics I knew was if a guy liked Hitler, I'd beat the stuffing out of him, and that would be it, by Jack Kirby. And then Charles, again, for realtors, that means the whole project is done. No delays when we were talking about the book being done in its entirety. We also had a sex bot infiltrate the chat. Find your love here. So I went ahead and said, find your comic here, and drop some links. And then Charles, once again, if Jason says give a couple days, he means he's about to write 79.5 pages.
So he's pretty close. But if you give Charles or Chuck, as he goes by, a couple of days, he'll write 150.
150.
Yeah.
Wow.
Chuck is an amazing writer. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Chuck after we talk about this later, because we are actually co-creating a book together that is coming to a publisher near you.
Charles says you're lying.
I'm trying not I don't know how much I can say, but I know
you could say it all, baby. You could drop it all here. No
you
worries.
heard it here first.
Dan and I are in the same boat. The book is completed. There are no delays. So as you see them in previews, that's when they'll be delivered. It's all done. And it's been done for quite some time. And it's just really, really exciting. I've been going to comic book stores in New York, been reaching out to comic book shops across the country, talking about this, really trying to get it out there, because, I think as you see it, it's just, Antonio did just a phenomenal job that I just can't.
There's interior scenes at one point where they're like, it's like a headquarter bunker type thing. And for me, that's even with all the craziness that comes after, that's my favorite part, because he has such a great sense of depth, so that it's like, as you imagine, zombies are happening, but like there's such an excellent sense of depth of the location. He's
even really like right here, like the way his technique is, like with these trees, like how like in the forefront, like they're blacked out and you just see the shadows, and the way you see everything kind of like veering off because of how far out it goes, and like all the trees right here in this boat. Like, dude, this is great work, man. I'm loving this. We have Charles saying stop it, talk about Dan's book. Tim and Chris won't be mad, but I want to hear about Dan's book too. And then Dan ain't kidding, great scene.
So okay, so this is one of my favorite pages. This, for me, this is like right out of like Game of Thrones or something. Like when I see this page.
I love like the fog, like almost like that snowy fog where it's like blowing like so hard that like you can like the visual. Like he did such a great job like imitating that right here. And just you'll see. I mean, you saw it. You know the pages at the end. You know how this builds up. But you ain't seen. And like, look at this detail. The individual rings holding the armor together. That is outstanding, dude.
Yeah, he really killed it.
Yep. And then the corner caption, I got to take some credit. So this is kind of like if you go to the bottom corner.
Oh my bad.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's okay. The bottom right. So this is kind of where like the old school comics come into play with me. Like I want to make sure that there's like a cliffhanger tease at the end of every issue. So like I throw that stuff in there. I didn't get a chance to do that like at the beginning of every page, which I like. Like in the 60s Marvel, you'd have like there would be a blurb on the splash page in the beginning, and that kind of leads into the issue. And I'm doing that with another project that I'm working on, but I didn't get a chance to do this, but I did get to do it. I know it sounds silly, it's such a little thing, but I like these little details where at the end of the last issue, there's like this cool little blurb like that.
I love like the recap. Is that what you're talking about? Like where you read and it's like in last issue, like this happened. Like
yeah, right. That too. Yeah, the recap at the beginning.
And they tell you the characters too. Like, I think that's a big thing too. Like, where you're like, okay, well, I know who this is now. Like,
and those old Bronze Age had the little, just like you could be your first X-Men, and you'd be like, okay, Children of the Atom, they're persecuted. Okay, I'm up to speed. I can start reading this. I know what I'm.
And I, we don't really do that anymore with comic books, and I like to try to, at least when I get to work on them, bring that back.
So why do you think that is, though? Do you think it's just like a lost art? Do you think people kind of just like forgot about it? Like, what do you think might be leading to that?
Well, from my perspective is, it's come down to how comic books are sold and distribution now. Like now, if you go into a comic book store, the majority of the people that go there know what they're buying. I think that's fair to say, right? Like when you and I go in, we know who Spider-Man is. We know who Moon Knight is. We know who Batman is. We don't need to pick up the issue and be filled in about who he is, or who they are, because we've been reading them for 40 years. But when they were being sold on newsstands and in grocery stores and drugstores, any random person could pick them up, and it could be, and so that you're getting the random person, it's the random chance of picking it up. So when they have it, they have the full information about who that character is, and it's accessible to anybody who picks it up. Like my mom could pick up a Batman in 1980, even as recent as like 1988, and get a full understanding who Batman is. And I think now, because the way the market is, the majority of people that come in, it's not really necessary anymore. Even though I think the modern comic book writers do a good job about every comic book should be somebody's first. But I think there's, we can do a little bit more. And maybe the times have changed, or
I wouldn't say Marvel X-Men still, I think they still do the little recap, but they also do like 20 issues a week, so they kind of have to, I feel like, right? Like So Dan, what's your thoughts on that, though? I know we've kind of, this was really focused on Northern Blood, but you're a part of this podcast too. Let's get a little bit of Dan in here.
Yeah, no, well, Northern Blood is first off. Let's just hit Northern Blood one more time. It's in previews right now. Jason, what's that final order cutoff on Northern Blood? How?
I believe it's the final week of November.
So don't wait for that, folks. Yeah. Go now. Go to wherever you get comics and ask for Northern Blood from Blood Moon Comics. Go do that, because it's a great book. You're gonna love it.
And Jason,
Jason worked very hard on it, so. Go,
how important is it for people to pre-order this too? Like, can you tell us the importance of making sure they pre-order this from Previews World?
Oh, so yeah. So, these days comics, they live and die by pre-ordering. So comic book stores are not going to know that their customers want them unless you go in there and tell them you want a copy of it. Because, for many reasons, comic book stores may not be able to order everything in previews. They, for space or whatever the reasons are. They have to be very particular about their stock. So for newer creators, where we don't necessarily have the name to carry our books, someone needs to tell the retailers to take a chance on us. So it's extremely important that you go in, tell your comic book store, this is the comic I want you to order because I want to check it out, because there's maybe a chance that they weren't planning on ordering it. So there's a million. There's hundreds of publishers in previews every month. There's millions of comic books in there. It's very hard to stand out. It's, if you like what you see, it's, please pop into your local comic book store, let them know you want to order it, or go online. You can go directly to Previews World or any other online comic book retailer who offers pre-ordering, and you can order the book.
Oh, that is awesome. We have real quick, Charles, the scene is amazing. Tony, Isabella wrote those recaps for Marvel and DC forever. And then we have Dr. Hino 419, Army of Darkness. Wait, wrong IP. Was Army of Darkness like any sort of influence as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. There's some lighter moments, like comedic moments that didn't make the final draft, but Army of Darkness, Evil Dead is definitely in the DNA somewhere.
Oh, that is awesome. So guys, once again, right there is the link. It's New Comic Book Day. What are you waiting for? Pre-order these covers. If you're unable to, though, that is okay. We understand that. Simply sharing this on Facebook and Twitter is 100% free. And word of mouth helps gets this out farther and farther. So let's get as many eyes in on this as possible. So Jason, Dan, You guys got some goodies, right? You got some things in the works right now. Maybe you can give us a little sneak peek.
Yeah. Well, can we hit the have you all heard of this publisher, Band of Bards? Are you familiar with this publisher? Don't you? I think you have a graphic there, Cody.
Of, wait, your artist has been here, right here.
The excellent offerings that are.
Oh.
Antonio!
Hey, sorry. I hope you haven't been waiting too long.
It's the legend.
I've been here about 20 minutes waiting for.
Oh
That's my
no!
fault.
I'm so
It's
sorry.
my
Yeah, because I'm looking at like multiple screens. So I told them, I'm like, you guys are in charge.
No.
When you see him, you gotta let me know.
Don't worry.
So
Okay.
Dan, you see what I'm talking about? The background?
Yeah, look at that. That's great. That puts my little shelf to shame. Me encanta todos los libros que tiene. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Nice. And Antonio, I love Northern Blood.
Yeah, muchas gracias.
Te la comiste. I love it. I love it.
Gracias. Thank you.
It's so good.
Yeah,
So-
can you tell them I really like the visuals too?
Yeah. Do you hear Cody? Antonio, did you hear that?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. So Band of Bards is in this month's previews as well with several awesome titles. Please look at that featured item, Brody Can't Be Broken. I've already read that. Not the finished version. I read a first draft of the script with thumbnails. It's awesome. You're gonna love that story. I can't wait to see it. I've already ordered it. So I highly recommend everybody go to page 280 of their previews catalog, or just go into your local comic book shop and ask them to order all of these excellent books.
Yeah, these are all Band of Bards. Man, it's
yeah.
a popular month for them.
There's Final Gamble 2. I read Final Gamble 1. That was awesome. That was
dude, that was a crazy one too. I was not expecting that one.
Yeah, I was not expecting where that went either. So that's excellent. So it's a gambling story, but
It's like Squid Game almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but with like a supernatural aspect that I hope to learn more about in issue 2. So lots of great books here. I highly recommend to go ask for these books by name.
Yeah, and I want to also spotlight Hush Ronin by my buddy Jeremiah Sheik. Hush Ronin is a samurai comic that he's written and drawn, and it's fantastic. Like, you can see some of the pages on his website, and it's choice. And I'm not saying it because him and I are doing a book together next year for Band of Bards,
but it helps.
That it's a spectacular book.
He's always posting great art. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be beautiful.
He's an incredible artist, so definitely take a look at it.
And it looks like we have Travis Gibb as well.
Yeah, that's a really cool premise where it's like it kind of almost reminds me of those like Holy Grail bloodline kind of stories, but instead it's the coins that Judas dropped, like, and then following them through history or what's happened with them. Like, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, that's a really cool concept. That is awesome.
Yeah, this is a huge month for Band of Bards.
Yeah,
really, they have a lot of great stuff in the works that's coming up. So really excited about a lot of it.
Yeah. And so go to where you get comics and ask them for Band of Bards comics. And Under God, that was successfully crowdfunded on Zoop. Yeah, love it. Is effectively sold out, and there'll be an announcement soon as far as being picked up by a publisher. Love to see it.
Let's go, Dan. Let's go.
So
I got
more
my
news
copy.
coming soon.
Sorry. Congratulations.
I got my copy from the Zoop campaign.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent.
And I've read it a few times, and it's
So
really
I'm really
great.
sorry about missing you and waiting backstage as well, because we are like right at the tail end of this too. I feel so bad. Can we do some sort of maybe recap or try to like ring him in on some of this?
So yeah. So Antonio, we were just talking about Northern Blood and the great job you did drawing it, and how you were the creative force.
Yeah, no, we love it. I love this. This is awesome. This is awesome.
Thank you. The main problem was I didn't go to the gym. I didn't go to outside and stay here at home. Like
he sees the bookshelf. I know.
it was like 1 year, one complete year. Yeah, maybe a full year of working. Well, if you like it, well,
I love it.
No, Jason was telling us if he would have asked you for any more, you probably would have killed him.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, like I was talking about how much work goes into drawing these books. He did a phenomenal, it's just an incredible job. And everybody that I've seen, everybody I've talked to about it, the first question is, who drew it? Who's the artist? And I point him to Antonio's direction, because he's really the champion here for this book. So I want to make sure that that's known and, very clear that this book could not have been as good as it is without him. So, go ahead.
I tried to.
You delivered.
So did you do just paper and pencil for the art?
Sorry, the first part.
Could you translate that for me?
Te pregunto si es solamente en papel con lápiz y
well, I usually work in traditional methods, like paper and pencil, everything, and then I scanned the page and finish the work in the computer.
Okay.
But I'm still a traditional artist. I bought like a Cintiq, like a Wacom Cintiq.
Mm-hmm.
I can't use.
It's different, right?
No.
Under God is all traditional also.
The first page of Northern Blood was the grayscale I made on that page. The first, where the 3 soldiers are walking in the snow, was colored with a tablet and maybe it's like a Cintiq. And then I decided don't use it. Come back to the computer and working with a typical, digital pencil and Wacom tablet, because I couldn't use
to do the tones.
Yeah.
So Jason says you have an awesome idea for a potential sequel after this. Can you give us a little bit about that? And if you could translate that, if. Well,
we were talking about make a second part of the story in the 80s. In maybe using the Russian army, everything again, like maybe changing the German soldiers for Russian soldiers, waking up again the deaths.
No, it sounds like a really awesome idea.
Cool.
I really liked the name as well. The name was just perfect, just like Chef Kiss.
Yeah. So I think the plot, it's going to be very similar. Where, the one thing I like about this is that what you're getting. It's just fun from the get-go, and we just want to make sure that the focus is that everybody has a good time who reads it. So it's going to be similar, where it just hits the ground running. We'll figure out the details as we go along.
Yeah.
But hopefully we get to do it, because I've used up all of my good coin with Antonio, so we like. I gotta wait. I have to wait a couple of more years before he agrees to work with me again.
Yeah, Jason said that you're pretty tall, so if he doesn't pay up, you'll have to shake it out of him.
So you're the
Que eres alto.
Go ahead.
Que eres alto y que si él no te paga, tú puedes recibir, tú le sacas el dinero.
Sí.
No, that is awesome. So Dan and Jason, what's next for you guys as well? I mean, any other projects like on the horizon that we can expect? I mean, I know there's a little bit of secrecy. You guys aren't lifting it up too much for us. We get it. But anything that you can talk about?
Yeah, Dan, go ahead.
Well, I'm actually working on something that's so there's an announcement coming up, but I'm working on a new project that's going to be a period piece horror kind of story. So it'll be like a change up from what I usually do. It's not going to be superhero-y, and it's going to be I can't not have it be about something I think about. So like where like good agent and under God had that concept of incremental good, like even the smallest amount of good against a mountain of bad is still worthy, it still counts. This is, let's flip that, and what if you're given the opportunity to do good and you don't? Like what are the wages of vengeance? What are the wages of a life of vengeance?
I like that.
That's pretty much I don't even have a log line yet, so I'm wrapping up the script. I'm still figuring out what people are going to look like. So that's where I am in the process right now.
I think that ending line was good too, like the wages of vengeance. That is powerful stuff, Dan.
I'm going to write that down as soon as we get off this call.
So you Dan are a writer too?
Yeah, a writer.
Yeah.
See.
And you pay more than Jason?
Oh, much more.
Okay.
I'm going to send you the script for Under God 2, and a check in advance.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Dan. Don't worry, Jason. I'll pick up the pencil. I got you, man. It might not be as good, but
maybe you have to wait to see Northern Blood 2.
Yeah. No. I'm sure. I'm.
No.
Estoy seguro. I'm sure that it's going to be good.
So coming up the middle of next year, I have a book coming out with Band of Bards that is co-written with Mr. Chuck Saterly, who's been trolling us in the chat the whole night.
And a sex bot.
Yeah, and a sex bot.
Can we yield our time to the sex bot? Is that possible?
Local hot single MILFs are in your area now.
So we have we haven't announced it yet, but we're announcing it soon. The book is co-written and co-created by me and Chuck, and drawn by Jeremiah Sheik. If you visit my Twitter timeline and Chuck's Twitter timeline, you can, I think, guess what the book is.
Mm-hmm.
But just a kind of a tease, the book is about what if the Nazis had won World War II before it had started, and what the world would look like in 1975. And we follow a unlikely band of heroes that come together to bring down the Nazi regime that has a steel grip on the world by 1975. So that's what it's about. Awesome. It's another Nazi stomper, so which Chuck and I are having a blast working on. And I've already seen some pages from Jeremiah, which are just unbelievable, as you can guess just from seeing his past work. So the details and everything will be announced soon. We're really, really, really excited to be with Band of Bards on this one, especially the last couple of weeks. Tim and Chris have shown that they are incredible individuals in their ethics and the way they run their business. So I'm really, really, really happy to have found a home for this comic. At bottom. So
I'm very pro Tim and Chris. I've been trying to work my way into the Band of Bards. Like I told them like, hey, I've interviewed probably like a good third of them. Like let's send more my way. And then talking about the event over the last couple of weeks, the way they handled it, the way that they were on it, like within seconds, like it felt like, and just like. Sometimes you have to take out the trash, and the way they handled that, I'm like, dude, team Bards for the rest of life. Like, this was awesome. Like, the way they just stood up and showed the community, like, what they're really about.
Yeah. And that, and, their mission statement, I've said this online a lot. Their mission statement aligns with what I do for a living. So that's another huge thing for me. Awesome. And the other thing is the way they present themselves is exactly the same way they run their business. So the business end of Band of Bards is as stand up as the guys as they present themselves. You know what I mean? So like what you see is what you get, and they're just wonderful to deal with. So couldn't find a better place for that book.
Agree.
So yeah, we're really looking forward to that. And don't forget to pre-order Northern Blood from Blood Moon Comics. Blood Moon is doing incredible stuff. Their wheelhouse is horror and science fiction, so we fit right into it. And they have a great slate of books. And I encourage you not only to pre-order our book first, but my colleagues at Blood Moon who have incredible books as well. Just check out their whole catalog. Just like Band of Bards, they're knocking it out of the park as well.
We have Chuck over on YouTube. The Sex Bot and I are busy. That's I wonder why the Sex Bot stopped chatting. The Band of Bards are exactly who they are. And then Charles said, Jason, tell the title. It is so short.
Okay, so the title is Christopher Kubrick, Nebraska and Matilda Save the World from Fucking Nazis.
I love it.
So I'm probably going to get in trouble now. Tim, they're not that far from me, so I may get...
What did you see Tim busted the window with bat goggles on? What are you doing?
The Kevin Feige sniper.
Yeah.
If you see the red dot.
What's that red dot on you?
Yeah.
So, real quick though, before we wrap things up completely, this has been an hour of just.
Sorry, we went
No,
over.
you're good.
Sorry, Cody.
No, I've been having a blast. Anytime I can get you guys on, I love it. But we do have to be wrapping things up. So before we do that, can we get a little piece of advice? And Dan, if you could provide the translation in case I'm not able to correctly, I guess, translate it, because I know sometimes that can get lost. So for anyone who's starting, what advice would you guys offer to help them get motivated? Or get the courage just to begin their project.
Antonio, ¿entendiste lo que preguntó?
Solo una parte he entendido.
A uno que está
empezando en español.
A uno que está empezando a crear cómics, ¿qué le avisas? ¿Qué le dices para que pueda empezar? O para que sea más
Pues mira, te contesto en español.
Sí.
Te contesto en español y tú me lo...
Yo cambio las palabras. Yo voy a decir que dices otra cosa. No.
We just gotta trust that Dan has our best interest at heart right now.
Tú sabes cuánto mido. Tú sabes cuánto mido de altura.
Sí.
Lo grande que soy.
No, señor, yo lo voy a decir bien. No.
Ah, vale. Que no sé, que la práctica hace mucho, o sea, practicar, practice, and drawing everything, horses, streets, people, normal people doing things, and then decide where you want to work, if you want to make superheroes, if you want to make westerns, everything is different, but you need una base en el dibujo. Necesitas
a foundation in drawing.
Y eso es lo primordial.
Yeah, that's the most
Tener
important,
una
the
buena
basics,
base de
the
dibujo.
most important. Yeah, to have a sound foundation.
And then reading comics, a lot of comics, reading. Is the only way I know you can learn to draw in comics is reading a lot of comics. You know, there is no other way. Or if you have money, you can go to the Joe Cooper's school, but here in Spain we don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
So you only can learn reading comics.
So no translation needed.
Yeah.
Your English is great, Antonio. You should be on more shows. No. Your English is great.
It's better than the Jason's Spanish.
He was telling us about that. He was telling us.
I have a hard time pronouncing just regular English. So like I couldn't even imagine trying to learn a second language. I give you all props. That is like, it's very impressive.
Yeah.
I would just say that very basically probably what I said last time also, Cody, which is, and I said it earlier, getting a publisher or an editor's approval is a hell of a drug, and it's great. It feels great, but you don't need a publisher or editor's approval to make your comic. Go make your comic. And when you make your second one, it's going to be so much better than your first. And when you make your third, oh my gosh, it's going to be so much better than your second. Right? Yeah. So just go make your comics. You don't need to wait for whoever to. And if like I tweeted the other day, get your comic out of you. Make it alone if you have to. Like, just do it.
I feel you're bad like the embodiment of that, Dan. Like for real. Yeah. Like you've been putting work in left and right, like doing it by yourself, man. I give you a lot of kudos for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I feel bad for the previous comics we made, Jason and I, Gandhi. Yeah. I feel so bad for the drawing and
oh gosh.
With this Northern Blood, I wanted to make try to make the best I can do for it. So I think lo conseguí, creo que lo conseguí.
He says, I think I got it, and boy, yes, you did get it.
Yeah. We have Chuck saying in chat, amen, Dan, the best way to master a thing is to know of all of a thing. And then Jason, you're an asshole for not introducing me to Dan. I also like Antonio, like you better. Like Dan better.
Thank you.
Hey Jason, before you go with your advice, I know Cody's gonna cut us off real quick, so I want to sneak two things in. One is my buddy's comic is out this month, Dr. Rigby from Source Point Press. Go grab that. It's beautiful. You're gonna thank yourself.
I gotta get you two on the show at the same time.
Let's do that.
Because I talked when I interviewed him, I talked to him about that.
Also, this week is Jason's birthday week.
Yes.
So here's some tres leche. Do you see the tres leches?
Yes.
You see all of them?
Thank you, Dan.
All right, everybody, you ready? No, I'm joking. So Jason,
okay.
What about you? Give us a little bit of your advice as well.
So I would say, I'm not an artist. I would say from a writing perspective, as a writer, you need to read. Read. Not only comic books, but read everything. If you want to make comics, you need to understand the language of comics. So read comics and understand that language, because it's its own unique language. And if you're not sure where to start, find your favorite comic book and use that as the blueprint, and make your own comics. Like Dan said, make your own comics, even if it's by yourself, and then build that up. But write every day if you can, and more importantly, finish everything you start. If you start a script, finish it. Like don't have a folder full of 32 pages of unfinished comic book scripts. Finish everything you start, because once you have the discipline to sit down and finish those stories, you're only going to get better as a writer. So that's my advice.
I love that. That is awesome. And I think kind of seeing it all the way through teaches you to have that mental endurance, right? To keep going, to keep pushing yourself, and to teach you that you're capable of doing this. Charles, I used to script comics backwards from created comics I bought as a kid. That's a good one too.
Yeah.
Kind of like a reverse engineering it.
Yeah, absolutely. Take your favorite comic book, reverse engineer it, use that as the blueprint.
And Jason, you mentioned having like a folder of ideas that then never get to fruition. How about also don't do the opposite of that? I know so many people who talked all their art out of them. Like all of their creativity, they talked about all the things they're going to create and how it was going to be and all the things, and then nothing happened. They just talked it all out of them. Like make your art out of you, get it out of you. Don't just,
No, that is awesome. Once again, guys, here is the link to hit these pre-orders up for cover A and cover B. Be sure to check them out. And if you can't, simply share them on Facebook and Twitter. Word of mouth is 100% free. And you have nothing to lose. What are you doing? It is New Comic Book Day. Show the world some awesome comic books and make sure it is Northern Blood. Everyone watch. I hope you all have had an awesome time. Dan, Antonio, Jason, thank you for joining us. This was such an awesome chat, guys.
Thank you so much. This is excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again, Cody. This is always amazing to be here. Always.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone watch, I hope you have an awesome Wednesday. But most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.